The preseason is finally over for the Florida Panthers, and with the injuries that they have on their roster, it'll be the most anticipated regular season in recent memory.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, October 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You can do that all on FanDuel. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. And yeah, the preseason is finally over for the Panthers, as this weekend was a little bit of a crap show when it comes to the games that we witnessed on Thursday night from Benchmark International Arena, and then on Saturday following that at Emirates Bank Arena, where the Florida Panthers played most of their veterans in the Saturday game. There was no Gustav Forsling, there was no Anton Lundell, which Paul Maurice did say that he is day to day, and the Paul Maurice did make the right decision when it came to not playing Anton Lundell to get him ready possibly for opening night. But the Florida Panthers went into the game on Saturday mostly a veteran heavy roster, while the Tampa Bay Lightning, they still had more than a handful of cuts that they were going to be making prior to their opening night. So this gave them the freedom to have nothing to lose. That's the best way that I could put it when it came to some of the goonery that we saw on Saturday night, and really started from the first period, a first period that lasted over an hour with Scott Sabourin for that roughing call on Aaron Ekblad, going after him high and then getting him while he was defenseless. And yeah, I understand the hit from AJ Greer on Brandon Hagel and then getting him in a position where he is also defenseless, where AJ Greer did eventually get fined by the Department of Player Safety for the NHL. But here's the thing that everybody needs to understand when it comes to preseason and guys who are on the roster bubble versus guys who have everyday spots, who never get scratched or are important parts of the team. And there is a certain respect level that comes with it, especially when you're, like I said, on the roster bubble. And Scott Sabourin, he's 33 years old. He's only played 47 total NHL games in his career, and he's doing that move against Aaron Ekblad. And I get it. And I'm going to be a little consistent from what I said on Thursday night. If there is a time to settle some scores from previous playoff series, the time to do it is in the regular season. But this just went out of hand to guys who are contributing to this, who weren't even part of the playoff series between these two clubs. So why is Scott Sabourin one of those guys who is getting involved when it has nothing to do with him? Or I know Aaron Ekblad put that forearm to Brandon Hagel after making the hit to Alexander Barkov, but let the guys who actually were on the ice settle those scores. I mean, yeah, you don't like that boarding from JJ Mosier as well on Jesper Boquist, which he's also going to get a hearing from the Department of Player Safety along with Scott Sabourin. I mean, Scott Sabourin's career might be over at this point because he's making an AHL salary, and the games that the suspensions and fines, he's probably going to never play in the NHL ever again. So good freaking riddance, Scott Sabourin. And the other scores that the Panthers that the Lightning were trying to settle. Gage Gonzalez, who I believe Gage Gonzalez is an outstanding hockey player. He's one of those pieces that the Tampa Bay Lightning are using on the cheap to supplement their core that's still there. He's going after guys like Evan Rodriguez, and then you have AJ Greer jumping them and telling Dastruce in the middle after that scuffle to use his head and to think a little bit more when it comes to that. And yeah, here's the thing: the Panthers were the initiators on Thursday. The Lightning were the initiators, so I guess it's even in that point. So whatever when it comes to that. But also Roman Schmidt is another one of those going after Carter Verhaeghe, and then Carter Verhaeghe goes after someone later, and then he gets a game misconduct. You're looking at 5 to 6 Lightning players in the penalty box, up to 4 skaters on the bench at most. I mean, it was just not enjoyable hockey, to be quite honest. It, like Evan Rodriguez said at the end of his post game with Katie Engelson, number one, great questions by Katie Engelson, by the way, to ask him about his thoughts. And then Evan Rodriguez trying to just compose himself and saying that we're not going to go there, which is great maturity by Evan Rodriguez to begin with. But the Jeff Petrie talking about how they didn't want to come out and play. Actually, Mackie Samoskevich saying that they didn't want to come out and play hockey. Jeff Petrie says the number one thing is to protect themselves. Sergei Bobrovsky saying, oh, in the preseason, you just want to play some hockey. And, for this being Sergei Bobrovsky's last game in the preseason, he didn't really get a lot of shots going his way. I mean, at one point there was one shot against Sergei Bobrovsky in the second period. So there was like very little activity, and it's really hard to get a flow of things. And I'm not sure how much of a carryover this will be to just routine for Bob when it comes to the regular season, because you want to get at least a few reps in. But this is not what you have in mind when at least this isn't what I have in mind when going to a preseason game. You want to see how the other lines are gonna mesh together, which crazy to think that some of the guys who were on the roster bubble in Tyler Mott and Jackson Nika got were on a goal together. They combined for a score too. And also, the fact is that there's so many of these penalties that you're the referees, and you forget, oh, someone was supposed to get a game misconduct as opposed to staying on the ice, which had a goal taken off the board because Nico Mikkola was involved in the play, which I can't blame the officials for all that, because they were probably called by the league from the start before this game even started to say, hey, we know what happened on Thursday night. 186 total penalty minutes. You got to settle this early by sending people off if you need to. Do the game misconducts. This is the time to do it. Just like for the referees as well to say, hey, we are not going to have any of that. And guys can get seriously hurt. We're talking about life after hockey as well, which is very important. But yeah, these guys make millions of dollars. Yeah, these guys don't have to go to a traditional cubicle 9-to-5 job. Yeah, these guys have off seasons, but there's that quality of life of being with your family and being able to be mobile as well. And these guys are taking liberties at each other, hitting cross checks at the mouth, which is a tough place to be. Which, by the way, the injury update to Aaron Ekblad from Saturday's game is that he'll be looked at tomorrow. That's from Saturday going into Sunday. So we still don't have an update on what Aaron Ekblad's status is going to be for opening night, which is this is tough as well, because they're not going to, one way or the other. Paul Maurice has learned to use that response so that we honestly, at this point, I don't know what to feel when it comes to evaluated tomorrow, because it could go any which way. But even if Aaron Ekblad was okay to come back, you're not putting him back in that situation. For how heated everything got, you're talking 400 plus penalties between the two games. I mean, no, you just don't put your star player at risk. And I thought that Paul Maurice and the coaching staff for the Panthers were at least trying to at least see what the lines were going to look like, because they recently reacquired Cole Schwint off of waivers from the Vegas Golden Knights. They put him at center on one of in the bottom six to see how he would mesh with the rest of the group. And you still have some PTOs left on your roster in Noah Gregor and Tyler Mott that you're trying to get a little bit of this is their final tryout, which Noah Gregor, oh my goodness, him along with the fourth line of Luke Cunnin, AJ Greer, and Jonah Gadjevich, those guys really put Tampa Bay in their place from all the post whistle scuffle and all the fights as well. So you don't mess with those guys. You don't mess with these Florida Panthers. They're going to beat you up on the boards, and they're going to beat you up post whistle. So you might want to think twice before messing with this Florida Panthers team, because Evan Rodriguez, he got a hat trick and he was not even celebrating. I mean, yeah, it's preseason. You don't celebrate a hat trick, but his main concern was hoping that his friends were all right. And that goes back to what Paul Maurice consistently talks about how much these guys care about each other on and off the ice. And Evan Rodriguez not wanting to mess around there. So of course he's not celebrating a preseason hat trick. Of course not. When this is how the game turned out, no, absolutely not. So good for the guys for standing up for each other. And man, I hope that these teams, you limit it to one, and you put the bubble players, the AHL guys, against the Tampa Bay Lightning from now on. I hope that this remains in the heads of both Tampa Bay and Florida, and we'll see what happens when these two teams first meet up on November 15th in Sunrise, Florida, when these two teams first meet in the regular season. So the fireworks were big on Thursday and Saturday, but thankfully it'll be a little bit until these guys see each other again. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more of the roster moves for the Florida Panthers that they made over the weekend, and how there is one cut remaining for the Cats, and how we are going to do our predictions for individuals, and also the team and the Eastern Conference coming up in these next 2 segments. So keep it right here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, and if you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. Once again, that's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday, October 6th edition of the show. And we are one day away from opening night. The Florida Panthers will be lifting another Stanley Cup championship banners to the rafters there. And I am so excited that we are back for another season here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast to bring in your daily coverage of this Florida Panthers team. The brand is big in South Florida. The franchise value is 17th in the NHL, a 51% increase. The Panthers are still have this championship window right there for the next few years, even with all the injuries. And this is a good amount of adversity for the Panthers right at the start. And to think that even Matthew Tkachuk, who with the timeline of him returning in December, that's a positive if the Panthers are able to stay afloat through these first few months of the season. Once again, a very home-heavy first few months of the season for the Cats. So like I mentioned, Cole Schwindt was claimed off of waivers for the Florida Panthers from the Vegas Golden Knights. As you can remember, Cole Schwindt was part of the trade package that sent Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, and first-round pick to the Calgary Flames in exchange for Matthew Tkachuk. It took 3 years until the Calgary Flames made that pick, and 2 Stanley Cups later for the Panthers, the Calgary Flames finally made that pick, picking Colin Potter, and then Cole Schwindt no longer being part of the organization, being in Vegas, and now he is back with the Florida Panthers. So it's safe to say that the Florida Panthers have certainly won that trade. So like I mentioned, after the neutral site game in Orlando for Brandon Bussey, he was in competition for the third goaltender. And like I said, you have to be very strategic on when you place goaltenders on waivers. So there's a long list of goaltenders of players on waivers. Brandon Bussey was one of those guys, and he was claimed, unfortunately. He was claimed by the Carolina Hurricanes, who still have a whole bunch of questions in goal with the health of Freddie Anderson. And it doesn't seem that Rod Brindamore wants to give Pierre Kachekov the lion's share of the starts there, which we've seen how much of a ticking time bomb that Pierre Kachekov can be, and the inconsistent play that can happen with him. Jackson Nika on Sunday has been placed on waivers. We will know on Monday at 2 p.m. whether he does clear. So there's still one more roster transaction to do before the Florida Panthers officially submit their opening night roster, which will be on Monday at 5 p.m. That's when the Florida Panthers do have to submit it. But if you're following kind of the tea leaves for the Panthers with the PTOs of Noah Gregor, Tyler Mott, they could actually keep both of them because Mackie Samoskevich, according to Puckpedia, which Puckpedia in the beginning of the summer did not list Mackie as waivers exempt, but they sneakily put him back there as waivers exempt. So chances are that Mackie could be sent down. It's a paper transaction, but don't forget that the new rules with the CBA, you can't just send him down, not have him play a game, and bring him back up. Mackie will have to at least play an AHL game, which the Charlotte Checkers do open their season on Saturday in Springfield. So watch out for that if the Panthers do in fact send them down. But it'll only be temporary for the Panthers if they do want to keep everyone. And then Cole Schwint will probably be the guy placed on waivers so that they could still keep Gregor. They could still keep Tyler Mott. So a physical, speedy winger in Gregor and another centerpiece with Tyler Mott in the mix for the Cats. So that's just going to be a strategy for the Panthers to keep everybody in there. But here are some of the betting odds for the Florida Panthers going into the season. So I just checked FanDuel, and they still have the Panthers right now as the favorites to win the Stanley Cup because I guess they're banking on Alexander Barkov coming back mid-season, which he could begin skating as early as February, which the Panthers are likely going to decide by the March 6th trade deadline of if they are going to reactivate him during the season. And the thing is, the team and the player has to sign off to put him on season-ending IR to get the full $10 million cap relief. But if they don't, the Panthers could have up to $3.8 million, which is the average total NHL salary to use for Alexander Barkov being on LTIR. So the Panthers plus 50 to win the Stanley Cup, plus 330 to win the division, which is the third best in the Atlantic Division, right behind the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're over under, which if you heard our Atlantic Division contenders crossover, which was on this feed, that was recorded before Alexander Barkov went down with the ACL and MCL injuries. That was set at 105.5. And it's dropped to 100.5, which I had the under on the 105.5, and I also have the under on 105.5 for the Panthers. And by the way, there's going to be regular season predictions. We're not doing any postseason predictions for the Panthers. I'm not going to be predicting a three-peat right now. I got to see how the Florida Panthers do play during the regular season. But I do have a few predictions myself on how some of the players are going to perform for the Florida Panthers in what's going to be an extremely interesting regular season. There's going to be so many guys having to step up for the Panthers. But the good news is, for how this team is currently constructed, they're building from the goaltending outward, which the blue line is consistent. The goaltenders in Sergei Bobrovsky, 2 Vezinas, 2 Stanley Cups, and he's being a mentor to someone like Daniil Tarasov, who he grew up in the same hometown. And Sergei Bobrovsky looking up to his father when he was growing up, and then Tarasov looking up to Bobrovsky. So it's like a little bit of a bridge between idols, mind you. But some so let's go over the forward lines for the Florida Panthers coming into this season. So top line is projected to be Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart. Second line, depending on Anton Lundell's health, which he was day to day, Ed Toulouse-Strain, Anton Lundell, Brad Marchand. The third line going up to the second. Third line, Jesper Boquist, Evan Rodriguez, Mackie Samoskevich, depending on if he does get sent down just temporarily. Joda Gadjevich, Luke Cunnin, and AJ Greer. And then your looks like that the extras, the 13th and 14th forwards are going to be Mott and Gregor. So the defense, it's going to be a lot of continuity, thankfully, for the Panthers team. Forsling Ekblad, Mikola Jones, Dmitry Kulikov, Jeff Petrie. And Jeff Petrie, I'm really liking his upside on what he could bring, especially on the man advantage for the Panthers on that second power play unit. But 5-on-5 play is going to be important. I do think that the Panthers are kind of weak in their bottom six, which I think that the Panthers are going to be heavily relied on the top six as far as sometimes to outscore their issues, because you never know how that's going to look. And the center going down the middle, which Luke Cunnin, I don't know if he's going to be a season long solution for the Panthers. Maybe that's why you bring a Cole Schwint to play maybe a game or two. Maybe he doesn't even play a game at all. They could put him on waivers tomorrow and they could send him down to Charlotte, which him and his brother Kai are reuniting. I highly doubt we see a game from Cole Schwint. You're likely going to see Tyler Mott in that place at center, and then maybe shift Luke Cunnin to the wing. Do we see Sam Reinhart go to the wing? Do we see Toulouse-Strain, which he started with the Florida Panthers during his tenure with the Florida Panthers at center? But then that amazing third line that we saw in the playoffs is not going to be together. But if there's one person who can play those minutes at center, I do think it could possibly be Sam Reinhart. You could shift him to that third line, and put Toulouse-Strain down there. And then when Matthew Tkachuk returns, maybe Sam Reinhart is on Matthew Tkachuk's line. And that's why one of my predictions is that Sam Reinhart is going to challenge for the Selke Trophy. I do think that we are truly going to see what Sam Reinhart is truly made of as a two-way defensive forward, second in the Selke finalists, only behind Alexander Barkov. What's only stopping Reinhart from winning one is having a teammate that's the best two-way center in the NHL who's not suiting up for at least 7 months. Sam Bennett, I do think he's going to be a 65-point player for the Panthers. This is his time to really drive the play. He's not the give and go player like Alexander Barkov is. He's more of the dump and chase, getting his own, but he doesn't win faceoffs. That's the problem with the Panthers center depth, as far as especially if they ice the puck and that top line is pinned in their own D zone and they're out for over a minute. So that is one thing that I'm going to be maybe a little bit worried about for the Panthers defensively. But I just do believe with the Panthers speed and Sam Bennett's edge work that he's going to pop in quite a few goals, wreak some havoc around the blue paint. And the fact that he's getting a lot of that power play time, I do think that he's going to get even more points this year than he did last year. His career high is 51. Mackie, I do think he's going to get over 20 goals. He's going to, right now he's listed on the third line. Maybe he gets the top 6 minutes. He is better when it comes to top 6 minutes, and you can't pin him down. We saw towards the end of the Lightning series how when he was on the fourth line, Evan Rodriguez started there, then shifted back, how he basically became ineffective there because you don't have that center to distribute the puck to him. I do believe that Sergei Bobrovsky will get the 30 wins to go from 10th all-time in wins, although goalie wins is not a stat, that Sergei Bobrovsky will get to number 6 in the all-time NHL wins list. So the splits are likely going to be somewhere between 52 to 55. The Olympic break is going to be helpful, which Sergei Bobrovsky definitely does take that time to work on his craft, his stretching. He also does the right thing when it comes to taking the time off the ice as well. So he is so as much of a pro as can be when it comes to his overall preparation. And the last one, as far as individual, I do believe that Seth Jones, because he will have a full season with the Florida Panthers, he got invited to Team USA orientation camp. I do believe that he will challenge for the Norris Trophy. His career high in points is 57 in the 2017-2018 season. That's the year where Columbus won the first 2 games against the Washington Capitals. Philip Grubauer was in goal for the Caps, and then Braden Holtby started the rest of the playoffs, and they didn't look back. The Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup there, and that was Seth Jones' career high with 16 goals. I do believe the added responsibility, having a better team around him, is going to definitely help. But what's going to happen on that left flank for the Panthers power play? That's going to be extremely telling for how the Panthers do get their opportunity, do convert on their power play opportunities. So that is going to be interesting. But his shot from the point is outstanding. His ability to skate from point to point to keep the puck into the zone, I do think he is responsible there. And with a full season with the Florida Panthers, I think he's due for a big one. But are the Panthers going to make the playoffs? Your based on these predictions, I'm hinting at something here. But where do I believe the Panthers will finish in the regular season? And I'm going to predict the Eastern Conference playoff field next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football more exciting, unless you're a Dolphins fan, when you have a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Segment 3 here on this Monday, October 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. And once again, it's so exciting that the season is starting for the Cats. And if you want to hear more of what I have to say about this season coming up, check out my appearance on the Cats and Rats podcast with the guys over there. Cody, Nick, and Kirby, outstanding people. Some of the people in the Panthers community that I talk to the most. Make sure to go and check out that episode. It's an hour and a half that we spent together just talking Florida Panthers hockey. And also, I will be making an appearance on WPTV in Palm Beach County on Wednesday with Mike Trim, discussing the Florida Panthers on a show called Panthers 360. Make sure to tune in on Wednesday night as we discuss the Florida Panthers there. So some predictions for the Panthers on their regular season. As you heard in the over-unders where I said the Panthers will be under 105 points, I mentioned that I believe that Sam Reinhart will challenge for the Selke and that Seth Jones will challenge for the Norris Trophy this year. This tells you everything of my belief still in this Florida Panthers team. If there's anybody who is going to be able to withstand the injuries that the Florida Panthers currently have, it's them. There's so much depth. The top 6 is still better than a lot of top 6s that you'll see across the NHL, and the Panthers floor is still pretty high here for what they have. So I do believe that the Panthers will punch their ticket to a 7th consecutive Stanley Cup postseason berth, which could you have imagined that 10 years ago? Think about where the Florida Panthers were 10 years ago. They made the trade for Jaromir Jagr for 2 second-round picks, bringing him in to mentor Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau. And they had not, and just a few years ago, they got bounced in 7 games against the New Jersey Devils, and they were still looking for their first playoff series win. Yeah, they didn't win a playoff series in 2016 against the New York Islanders on a heartbreaker. Barkov not converting on the penalty shot, Trocheck getting tripped, and look at that. 10 years later, the Panthers are 6 straight trips to the Stanley Cup playoffs, two championships, 3 finals appearances, and a President's Trophy under their belt. Which now let's get to the actual order that I do believe that they will finish in the Atlantic Division, and I'll predict the entire Eastern Conference. So the Atlantic Division, first place in the division, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. I do believe that this is possibly the last year of their competitive window. They did run it back for the most part this year, but I do believe that it's still, although a very top-heavy team, still when you got the likes of Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, Braden Point, uh, you have a good nucleus there in Tampa Bay. And I believe, as you could tell, that group is pissed off from their exits early in the Stanley Cup playoffs the last 2 seasons. So I believe that they will take the regular season very seriously. Andre Vasilevsky will be starting from game 1 on, although they did get some goalie insurance during this preseason, getting Phoenix Copley off of waivers. But I do believe that they are in for a good regular season, postseason TBD. Toronto, I do believe that although they filled out the depth with the money that they used for Mitch Marner, you gotta show me in the playoffs. But I do believe that there'll be some growing pains for this Toronto Maple Leafs team. But Austin Matthews, you're really going to see what he's made of. Morgan Rielly could have a better second season under Craig Berube, and there's a lot of pieces coming back, and they'll have the cap space in a few years to make a big splash again when filling out guys, getting Nick Waugh in that sign-in trade with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Dakota Joshua is the guy that they're trying to use as their enforcer, forward physical, as they're trying to emulate kind of the Florida Panthers way. Although Joseph Woll is not with the team right now, the goaltending tandem of paying 2 guys under $6 million, I do believe that could pay dividends for Brad Treliving and company over in Toronto. Maybe not immediately, but they're not cap strapped under their core 4 like there was, and the Matthew Nice contract looks amazing in my opinion. So the Florida Panthers, I do have them finishing 3rd in the division, just like last year. They finished with 98 points last year. I do have them around 96, 97 points, but I do believe that it will still be good enough for a postseason berth, and the Panthers will have to bank the points in the early parts of the season. And the fact is, Anton Lundell is going to get those tough matchups, and the fact that the Panthers will have the last change in the beginning of the season for the most part with all their home games, I do believe that Anton Lundell, he's thrived in those big minutes against the opposition's best. I think that he is up to the challenge. Will he have an explosion of points? Not necessarily, because he doesn't necessarily play power play minutes. But I do believe that he is in for a big year, and he will live up to that name of Baby Barkov. Ottawa, I'm really high on that Ottawa Senators team. They really spent at the trade deadline last year. They spent over the last few years getting Nick Jensen as part of the mix and part of that Jacob Chikrin trade, although he is an older veteran. Although Thomas Chabot is his game is slowed down a little bit, Jake Sanderson is the real deal for the Sens. But I do believe that that Linus Ullmark, if he's healthy and now being acclimated to a new environment, he will have a better season. But I do think that they will be a wild card. I don't have Montreal in the playoffs for them. Although they got Noah Dobson, they traded one of their defensemen in Logan Mailloux for Zach Bolduc to build up the forward group. There's still questions at second line center. Kirby Dach is slated as second line center. Alex Newhook, although he won Stanley Cup champion, he was their second line center has been shifted to third. And then Kirby Dach, injury history there. Goaltending is an issue there. So I have to see it to believe it for the Montreal Canadiens. And also, success isn't linear in my opinion. So 4 playoff teams I do have out of the Atlantic for the Eastern Conference. And then Boston, although their floor is actually pretty high, in my opinion, with a healthy McAvoy, Pasternak, and Swayman, you have those at least foundational pieces, but it's not good enough to be a playoff team. There's a lot of third line players playing a second line role in Boston. And Buffalo, got to see it to believe it as well. Detroit, They got John Gibson, so that at least raises things, as they missed out by a tiebreaker 2 years ago. I got to see it when it comes to the Iser plan. So Metropolitan Division, I think that the Carolina Hurricanes can win the President's Trophy. I think would be their year to win it. Getting Nikolai Ehlers, if he is healthy, and that could really help the likes of an Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, which Svechnikov can pop 40 any year. And I believe that the Hurricanes are likely primed for a big regular season. We'll have to see if it lines up in the postseason. I got the New York Rangers being back in the postseason. Mike Sullivan's in the mix. Vladislav Gavrikov is a defensive defenseman who could play with Adam Fox. So Adam Fox has maybe a little bit of a fall from grace ever since winning the Norris Trophy. I do believe that he could have a bounce back with not playing with the likes like Ryan Lindgren, and the fact is that even though New York is a slower team, they tried playing a little bit of a fast-paced type of game, which I do believe that Keandre Miller in Carolina could actually play that Rod Brindamore system hockey. The Panthers were killed Keandre Miller on that forecheck multiple times, especially when the series in the conference final in 2024 shifted at home. They knew that if he was hesitant with distributing the puck out, they knew that they could create second or third chance opportunities. I do have the New Jersey Devils, and man, there's so many great contracts on the New Jersey Devils with guys making under $8 million. Luke Hughes, who knows how that contract could appreciate over time, but the clauses for Dougie Hamilton change, so they could actually ship him off and clear some of the books in the next coming years. I mean, if they are able to lure Quinn Hughes to the New Jersey Devils, but health has been an issue with Jack Hughes for him. But that is just, I believe that's a truly a high ceiling type of team if they could get it all together. I love Jesper Bratt. I'm a big fan of him. Nico Hischier. Without Barkov, it could be him, Austin Matthews challenging for the Selke Trophy. Even Anze Kopitar in his last season with the LA Kings, but we're talking Eastern Conference here. I'm a big believer in this New Jersey Devils team. The last one is going to be a surprise for a lot of you. Although there's questions in goal with what they're going to do in the future with Elvis Merzlikins, and Jet Greaves is a very promising goaltender, I do believe that the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to be, I think they're going to ride more than just the high of, not the high, they're going to ride more than just what Johnny Gaudreau brought to them as far as playing for him last season. I do think that it's not just a fluke. You don't go through 82 games and show teams night in and night out and challenge them there. So I do think that they although they re-signed Ivan Provorov, which a lot of people are saying that that's a poor contract, but with not a lot of guys being paid just yet, it could actually, I don't think it'll age as poorly as a lot of people are saying, which I'm a big fan of Adam Fantilli as well. Kent Johnson, they're relying on a lot of internal development. Zach Werenski was a Norris candidate last year. So I'm a big believer in that Columbus Blue Jackets team. So I believe they will be one of the teams to sneak into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So let me know what you think when it comes to my predictions, when it comes to Eastern Conference and the individuals when it comes to the Florida Panthers, and tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm right as well. Provide your opinions in the video below. But we are one day away from opening night, where the Florida Panthers will be welcoming in the Chicago Blackhawks. On Tuesday's edition of the show, we will be previewing opening night between the Panthers and the Blackhawks. We're going to try to get together with Jack Bushman if our schedules do align. If not, we will discuss more about the ring ceremony that will be happening on Monday, and as well as possibly some top 100 talk for the Panthers, as some more than a handful of players are on that list for the NHL and our Locked On AHL top 100. So we'll have content for you either way to get you set up for opening night between the Panthers and the Blackhawks. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.